Let's begin with the topic, the nail plate architecture. The nail plates of any length should be graceful and with the right proportions. By creating the right proportions, in other words, the nail plate architecture, we will provide the strength and material wearability that we apply and then file. The correct proportions will help us to achieve the apex. Apex is the highest and strongest point of the nail that we can see if we look at the sides of the nail. Everything is simple if the apex on short nails is located in the center of the nail plate. Look at the diagram. On long nails, we spread apex in the center of the nail bed, or we move it a little closer to the lunula to ensure the balance of the material and to prevent the formation of cracks in the stress zone. It is important to do your work with the understanding. So if you spread apex on long nails, it should be laid out in the center of the nail. You understand that after 3-4 weeks, when the nail grows and moves, apex will move closer to the free edge, or will be already located on it, meaning that the free edge will be too heavy, and any impact on the free edge, such as a hit, can lead to cracks or even breakages. It is important that the client does not overwear the material and comes to the correction on time. Our task is to create the architecture of the nail in a way so that the proportions are correct. This is the stress zone, and it is the most movable part of the nail plate. This is the area of the nail that is located on the nail bed. It has a different area size, depends on the length of the nail bed and on the length of the entire nail. On the diagram, you see where the zone is located, but how to determine it? Here, you see the nail plate of different length. Visually, divide the nail plate into 3 equal parts, and the middle part is the stress zone. The stress zone includes sidewalls, the growth point, smile line, and if the nail is long, part of the free edge is also included. There is a way on how to determine the most movable zone of the nail. Gently push on the free edge. Here, we are talking about the fact that there is no artificial material on the nail plate. So, when pressing on the free edge, you can see the whitened area on the nail bed. The blood has drained away and we see the white area, and that is the stress zone. I repeat, it is the most movable zone in the nail plate, and with aggressive influence on the free edge, such as hitting, cracks and breaks can form in the zone. The growth point is located in the stress zone on the side. There are 2 points where the nail bed goes into the free edge, and they are parallel to each other. It is a support for the arch and the foundation for the stress zone of the nail plate. Do not remove the growth points, file them, or try to cut them with a tool, tweezers or scissors. If you injure the growth points, if you injure them constantly, then the side walls may become thinner and the nail will begin to curl and narrow. Also, growth points will shift up closer to the sinus, and this will lead to a change in the stress zone. So I repeat, do not remove the growth points, file them out, or try to cut them out with the tool, tweezers or scissors. It is important when cleaning the side sinuses, to carefully watch what we are filing, not to cut and not to file with a file or a mill. There are manicure masters who strive to remove these growth points because it seems to them that the manicure will look unclean and incomplete. But a professional manicure should know that the growth points will cover the side folds and they will not be visible. Let's repeat again about what will happen if the growth points are cut off. Firstly, deformation of the nail plate may begin, since the points will simply go to the sinus, or they may not even be parallel to each other. There will be permanent cracks in the stress zone, and even side anecholysis can develop. Two arches take part in creating the C-curve: the upper longitudinal arch and the transverse lower arch. It connects the edges of the nail smile. Together, the junction of these arches is where the stress zone is. When laying out the gel or gel polish, this is where the highest point of the apex is located, which regulates and makes the center of gravity stable and extends the wear of the material. So, longitudinal arch is the side view of the nail. Now, let's talk about the natural nail plate and consider the types of longitudinal arches. First type. Let's look at the slide. This is the normal bend that occurs most often. The bend of the nail is slightly curved. It could be less curved and some will have it more curved. The next type of the bend looks like a springboard, and the bend of this nail goes up. Next, the nail looks completely flat and has no visible bend. Beak-shaped bend will be found among clients quite often. The nail grown down, usually on an index finger. It's when the nail grows like a claw. The next surface is the wavy surface of the nail. Often occurs due to pressure on the root of the nail during manicure or deformation of the nails. We can fix all these problems of the longitudinal arches using artificial materials or gel varnishes and gels. We also have the transverse arch. This is the bend of the free edge when you look at the nails from the end of free edge. These arches also come in different shapes. Even with the complete absence of a free edge, you can see that the nail plate has a slight bend, some more pronounced and some less. The type of nails depends on the lower arch. The end of the nail is a cut of the free edge of the nail plate. Thick end is unattractive. In addition, it is an excess material on the free edge, which makes the nail heavier and accordingly creates a risk of cracks. Therefore, when creating architecture and when you are applying artificial material, you must consider that the end of free edge must be thin. We have a concept as a lateral axis of the finger. What is it for? When setting up forms for extension or extension of the nail plate, we pay attention to the lateral axis so that the free edge is correctly formed. During correction, if the longitudinal arch goes down, the beak-shaped nail, in order to raise the free edge, we orientate on the lateral axis. A true professional should not make basic mistakes when building the architecture of the nail plate. It is important to work with understanding. The main rule in the manicure is do not harm. What difficulties in work occur and what does a manicurist encounter in the first stages of work? Of course, it is the manicure itself. Or, for example, a common difficulty is the complex architecture of the nail, such as springboard or down-growing like beak-shaped bent nails or curled nails. The mistakes of the masters, such as cutting of the nail plate, the growth points that were damaged, for example, with a file or tool, steps occurring from the wrong filing, non-compliance with the architecture of the nail plate. For example, during filing of artificial material, crack in the stress zone occurs and the material detaches. When working with gel polishes or gels, we will come across the word adhesion. Adhesion is the gluing of an artificial material, that is a gel or gel polish, with a natural nail. It occurs only in the dorsal layer of the nail plate, and if your nail was filed and there was no dorsal layer, the linking will be bad. You can often hear about the dangers of materials, if the material is harmful or harmless, toxic or non-toxic, or whether it's allergic or not. It all depends on the level of impurities in the raw material. Different materials have different pH levels, depending on the task and the purpose of the material. Gels and gel varnishes all have an acidic pH, since they are salts and esters of acrylic acid. It may slightly differentiate depending on the purpose of the gel. Acidity should be pH normal, that is between 5.2 to 5.7. That's the normal acidity of nails and skin. Otherwise, linking will not occur. Nails are an amino acid protein. Roughly speaking, in pH terms, a person is sour or acidic. If gel polishes or gels would have a neutral pH of 7, for example, then they would have a very weak adhesion. In order for adhesion to work well, you need to think about which primer to choose. The primer can be acidic and non-acidic. The acid-free primer works on the principle of a double-sided tape, so that there is an adhesion between the nail plates and the materials. We need to apply a very thin layer with a brush. The acid-free primer has a thin sticky base and works in a thin layer. If we apply the primer thickly and the layer is thick, then detachment will occur and we will achieve the opposite effect. When we apply the primer, we do not touch the skin in any way, otherwise there will be streaks of the main gel. Also, we apply acid primer. When we use acid primer, we must understand that we are exuding and drying out the natural nail plate, and over time this nail may be more brittle, dry, and the material may not hold. It is good to use acid primer on nails if the client has moist hands, so that it dries it. Now we understand that the primer that we work with, acid or non-acid, determines the weariness of our material. I advise you to have both. So if the client has very dry nail plates, then of course you will use an acid-free primer and vice versa. But why do these detachments occur? Well, they occur due to the wrong removal of the milling cutter. When removing with the milling cutter, do not reach the natural nail. Leave about 10% of old material. But at the same time, if you see a detachment, it must be cleaned and cleaned very carefully so as not to touch a natural nail with a milling cutter. Also, it may be due to incorrectly performed manicure. And after performing the manicure, you did not finish cleaning the pterygium and put a primer on top and then a base. Then the detachment will appear 100%. After the manicure, the nail plate should not be left greasy. Be sure to use degreasing of the nail plate. That is a dehydrator. It additionally removes the remaining moisture from the nail plate and dries it for further coating. Dehydrators are alcohol-based. What cannot be done before manicure? What recommendation as a master you can give to your clients? Well, do not apply cream or cuticle oil on your hands on the day of the manicure. You can say this to clients. There is a greater likelihood of peeling of the coating from the nails occurring. For a good grip, the plate should be well degreased, and if it is saturated with heavy cream or oil, even a good degreaser cannot always cope with it. Ask the client not to cut the cuticle themselves and not do home manicure before going to a manicure with you. The skin doesn't recover so quickly, and it can cause some pain to your client during the manicure with you. Clients love to pick, cut out excess, and therefore it will interfere with your work, and you will spend more time handling clients' cuticles that have already been handled by them. Warn the client that they need to be careful with the gel coating. So, if some detachments have occurred, they don't need to break it off, because when breaking off or tearing off of a piece of gel polish, the client can break it off in a way so that the top layer of the nail plate will become damaged. And because of that, the next coating that you will apply may also attach badly. So warn your clients not to tear off any broken pieces. If the shine is lost, it becomes more matte and the top is slightly worn out and scratched. Recommend your client to cover the nail plates with gel polish with a colorless top. This will refresh the appearance of the nail plate until the next visit to you. Everything about this and more will also be explained further into the course. Take notes for yourself, take screenshots, and revisit again and again certain points that weren't clear to you. I wish you good luck in further studying this material. Until next time.